We are now recording from Dubai.
When you need to pay rent and you have no money.
Life must be so hard, but it doesn't mean it's not good.
These are the building blocks days. This is what your 20s are for.
Which way do I want to go with this? Do I want to be motivated by it, or do I want to drag myself down?
And it's very much a product of whatever you put in, you're going to get out.
Are you chasing because it looks nice, or are you chasing because you truly desire it?
If I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. I don't really care.
Learn from our mistakes, our journeys, because you don't know who relates to us.
That's what I truly believe. And I feel like people miss that.
Ronnie Burt.
Sabian.
Hey, my boy. First off, thank you for being guest 3 on the Been There Felt That podcast, episode 4. And yeah, change of scenery because we are now recording from Dubai.
All the way from the Palm. Happy to be here, bro. Happy to be a part of this journey with you. And yeah, just get straight into it, I guess.
So I mean, backstory, I've known you for 9 years going now, since high school. And I mean, we matriculated in 2020, here we are in 2025. And since I've known you, like, you went straight into the whole yachting experience, traveling, just getting straight into the world. And I just want to know, and I think the viewers deserve to know, for people thinking of doing that, or the change that comes after, you know, the life of high school and the real world, your trials and tribulations of being out there on your own, taking the choices of just growing and being an independent human being and taking the challenge face on straight out the bat.
I mean, it's been a roller coaster, as you can imagine, you know. So matriculated 2020, decided not to go and study, wanted to take a quick gap year. Traveled for about 6-7 months up around Middle Europe, all the way to about 13 different countries. And then came back at the end of that year and decided I don't want to go to university, I don't want to study, it's not for me. I decided to go into yachting, a little bit of influence from one of my mates, a good mate back at home. And then, we just decided to go for it. Left South Africa 2021, I think it was March at the time. And pretty much for the past 4 to 5 years, I've only been back at home for maybe 10, 20 days every single year. I was on the yachts for about 2 years, and then after that made the move over to Dubai pretty much, and that's why I'm here with you now. So it's been a roller coaster, as you can imagine. Not going to university, seeing all of our mates, you know, studying, being away from home, being overseas for so long. It's been a journey, highs and lows, as you can imagine. But yeah, I wouldn't change anything for it, if I can say that.
No, and I can imagine, you know, life must be so hard, but it doesn't mean it's not good. And I can just picture the amount of people you met and like the networking and the different cultures you experienced, which is so limited when, you know, you're stuck at home and, you know, that's all you know, a country you know, and the living space you know. So how was the change of going from this comfortable space, you know, the boarding school, home in Dainford in South Africa, to now traveling the world and going to, like, I know you lived in Cyprus for a little bit before coming to Dubai, and give me some of those highs and lows of the challenges, but also the benefits, you know, what you saw as positive and what you took as was really hard, but what you learned from it.
Yeah, so I think that for me, just to like take a step back, I've always wanted to go overseas. That was always like the first thing. If I was going to study, my parents wanted me to go study, it would have been overseas. So that, for me, moving away, it was such a big thing for me to do that after school. So it was more of like a moment, take the opportunity as it comes and then just go for it. And then I'd say, like, the journey of being to so many different countries, meeting so many different people, as you mentioned, it's definitely helped me over the years to just, I think, evolve as a person, being able to just become more of a people person, talk a lot better, you know, and just understanding cultures and everything like that. And, you know, the biggest challenge, I'd say, was, of course, being away from home at the time. You know, when you're away, the first 6 months, 7 months, like, you're still away, you're still going to different places. It's a really cool experience. And then you start to miss the small things. And then every year that goes by, you're still missing those same things, the birthdays, your mom's birthday, or, you know, stuff like that. That's been the biggest challenge. It still is. I mean, I'm still away from home. I haven't lived back in South Africa for, I'd say it's maybe 4 to 5 years now. So that's something I still battle every single day. It doesn't get easier. You just learn to deal with it better, I guess. But, you know, there's so many things that you learn. You know, I've stayed, as you said, I was in Cyprus for about a year on and off. I was in Spain for about 6 months at a time, three different places. So I've had the opportunity to be around really different people. And I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't go back. I wouldn't want to go study. I wouldn't want to go stay in South Africa and go study back in my hometown. That's not something for me, never has been. I've always wanted to go and try different things. I mean, now sitting at 23 years old, or almost 23, 5 years out of school, I've worked, I don't even know how many different jobs. And I mean, if we had this conversation at, back in 2020 when we were matriculating, if I was going to be in Dubai being a real estate agent, I'd say that's, I don't know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? So it's been a big roller coaster, a lot of challenges, as you can imagine, but just keep moving forward, I guess.
So I like that you say keep moving forward and things that you miss, but how beautiful it is to miss something. I think people forget that. They focus on the negative of they miss it, but they take it in the way of I've lost something or that I can never go back. But how beautiful it was that you got to experience that, whether it's a human being, whether it's a place, a memory, a moment. I think it's people often neglect the feeling, but they feed into it. They don't understand it and come with the terms. And you traveling so much, you must have gone through so many different mood swings or, certain things that just trigger you. And something I wanted to top on, the living in Cyprus or the living in Spain, the differences to back home, because I think what people struggle with the most is change. It's so hard when everything around you changes, you become unfamiliar. But you, straight off the bat, you took it on and now look at you, living your life, working towards your goals. How do you deal with that change? What goes through your mind process, or what vision do you have, or what keeps you going forward?
It might sound a little bit cheesy, but for me, I'm just a very rigid thinker. I'm very just straight down the line, quite straightforward. If I'm here and I'm in a place right now, in the present, I'll just carry on from there. I can't keep thinking back to, what if I was back in South Africa because I've missed this party with my mates, or I've missed this birthday, or anything like that. So I think for me, just being a rigid thinker, staying leveled, staying in the present has definitely helped me to adapt in all these different places. And just to answer your question, it's more for me, the challenge wasn't really adapting away from South Africa. Again, as we've been on this topic, it has been missing those things. But what helps me to deal with all of that is to know that I have a goal at the end of the day. When I was in yachting, my goal was I wanted to go and travel to Antarctica. I also wanted to do a trip, or they call it a crossing in yachting, which was from pretty much Europe all the way up to America. So it was two small goals that you had in yachting. It's a new industry. I wanted to see how it can evolve, where I can go with that. And as long as I kept on getting better, the next job I had was better than the last one. My CV gets better. I'm making more money as I go, evolving. It makes it easier being away from home. Because if I was there, throwing away all my time, going around to parties, not putting in the work, not putting in the hours, there's no point. You can do that same stuff, that same shit back at home. You know what I mean? So for me, even now being here in Dubai for a year and a half, there's still times where I might get lost just being here, because you get to build a life here. And when you start to lose the goals, because you start getting into a bit of a routine, it might not be the right routine, but you're doing the same thing every week in, week out, you start to slip away a little bit from your goals. And every time that happens, that's when I miss home the most, because it makes it feel like, why am I here if I'm not constantly trying to pursue what my goal is that I need to pursue. So yeah, I think that's something that just keeps me level-headed, is the constant conscious thinking towards, okay, if this is how I'm feeling now, deal with it now, get on to the next thing, push for the goal, and keep going. And then the moment that fizzles away, then that'll be the moment I'll move back home, and that might be in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, you never know. Life changes. So,
I really think that's so inspirational and just wise words and a great level way of thinking, because people struggle to be present. I love how you said you're in the present moment, and that's what it is, and you know where to go forward because you have a sense of direction, the goals. And people often miss that. They set themselves out goals, but they let it be a dream. They don't take action. They just oh, I manifested, or it's going to happen, or I believe, but they won't take the action or the right step forward to achieve that. You know, they're either rather sit in their comfort and kind of let life happen to them. So how do you kind of practice, or do you think it was just something you were kind of born or taught upon, of how to be in the present, and like that drive of where you develop that drive of that's the goal, that's what I want to achieve, that's who you see you becoming, or what you want to grab? Because a lot of people have that idea, or they love the idea of it, but they won't actually chase it.
Yeah, I mean, straight off the bat, like me being a goal-driven person was definitely not my mindset for the past maybe 3 to 4 years. I mean, let's say from 2020 when I matriculated up until 2023, moving to Dubai, I didn't even have a sheet, like a goal sheet. You know, I never jotted down anything. I never journaled. It was something that I didn't do it, not because I knew that, I didn't do it because I guess maybe I didn't have a clear goal at the time, or I didn't believe that this was something that is necessary for me to do. Write it down. You know, you hear all these people online saying, write down your manifestations, write down your goals, write down this and that. And that's when I just felt like I was sort of bopping through the last 3 years, just trying to see what's next. And that's perfectly fine because I'm young. From age 18 to 20, you're still bopping through things, you're trying to do different jobs, blah, 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 that's fine. The moment I came to Dubai, that's when I became a much more of a goal-driven person, for sure. Because the moment you come to Dubai, it is so different than any other place. I mean, South Africa, you have a little bit of a bubble in South Africa. You have your friends, you have your family, it's home. It's same for anyone else, listening at their home. It's always going to be that sort of comfort factor. You go over to Europe, everything works really well in Europe. It's got the culture, it's got different kind of, demographic of people. But you come to Dubai and everything is pretty much goal-driven, everything around you. You know, it's quite difficult not to be, see the vision based off everything else around you. You see these supercars, you see these really unbelievable apartments. Me working real estate, I meet really, really wealthy people all the time. So if you immediately don't lock onto that mindset of picking a goal and moving forward with that, you will get swallowed in whatever system you're going to be a part of here in Dubai. Because no one really, in my honest opinion, no one really moves to Dubai unless they have something they want to achieve here in Dubai. You know, I mean, it's a place where it's a amazing, it's an amazing place to better your life. I mean, it's safe, it's got everything you need. But in terms of moving forward, if you don't become that goal-driven person, I feel that you will just stick in the sort of place that you're going to be, you're going to be stuck in the same place pretty much for however long that's going to be for.
So would you say, I know it's a big thing, like they say, you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with, or like you're a product of your environment. How important do you think that shapes you? Because I mean, you must have been up and down with friends, or like your circle gets smaller, or it changes constantly, and you meet new people, and do they affect you positively or do they affect you negatively? How much has that been an impact on your life, with your yachting and the crew, or changing jobs from the 2 real estate agencies you've been with, like the people you work with? How much do you feel in general in life that does affect you and has affected you? Has there been any moments where you realized this isn't where I want to be, or this is where I should be, and those stories and lessons?
It's probably the biggest effect in life, easily. I can be an advocate for saying that, because being around so many different people for so many different years, I feel like I've lived so many different kinds of lives, I mean, my Cyprus time was a very different time to my Dubai time. The people I spend time with in Cyprus are extremely different to the people I spend time with here. You are the product of the 5 closest people in your life. I believe that 100%. If I was living with 5 entrepreneurs and all owning their own companies and making millions of dirham, there's a very high chance that I will fall into that bracket, because you're constantly surrounded by those conversations, those kind of people, those kind of topics. That's what your life is going to mold and become. And I feel like that's why I've grown so much in Dubai, is because of the 5 people I have around me. I've come here, I've had many different mates, people come and go, people leave Dubai, they come to Dubai. I've worked for 4 different companies as well. And now I can truly say my group has come all the way down to maybe 10 people that I look to here, that I actually care about spending time with. And that is easily probably the best thing that's happened, because I mean, my time here has been so up and down. It's been very, very difficult at the start, got a bit better, went completely bad about like 8 months ago, and then it started to pick up a bit more. You start to spend more time with the people that you want to spend time with, start listening to the people that you should be listening to. I had a different kind of friend group when I was here, when I first came here, and that's probably why I had such a really hard 6 months, is because the life I was living with them, partying all the time, you know, drinking on the weekends. I wasn't making as much. I was living out of my means. I wasn't making the money that correlates to me trying to live this Dubai life. Because I mean, Dubai is a very glamorous place. You need to be level-headed if you want to at least have a life here. And very quickly you move to Dubai and you get to see all these things, all these beach clubs, all these parties, super expensive. You want to be a part of this because your mates are a part of this. And that was a very quick downhill spiral that I got myself out of, luckily. It was very up and down, but now I look at the 5 closest people, 10 closest people in my life. My life is not that anymore. You know, we all work, we all have our lives, we all have our careers in different industries, and that's a great thing because we're all here for the same goal, and that is to better our lives. At least half of us are from South Africa and the other half are UK, have all moved here with their couples or by themselves on a clean slate, and now have a clear sort of path that they want to go for. And I'm super blessed for that, 100%. You know, you've met a lot of the mates out here and great people, you know what I mean? And that sort of has allowed me to be more comfortable and just grow in the industry that I'm in, and to see how far I can really take it.
I must say, to rewind a little bit as well, it's just, you know, I always tell you, a big inspiration to me. Like, you were someone I looked at that took on life by the horns, you know, and you just rode it out, and you went for what you wanted to achieve, the person you wanted to become. You're practicing it, you're pushing, and that's why I think your goal drive is so amazing that people need to learn from, or at least you can share your stories and experiences, which you are, and I think it's amazing because I learned more about you that I missed out of in your life. And regarding your friends, like, I saw the group last year that you were with, or I never saw the group before, but now seeing the group now, you know, it's a great group of people. And one thing I have to say, like, seeing you in the past and how much you've grown in here, small steps have led to such big increment changes, which is amazing. One thing I want to focus on, because we never really touch on it or get that deep in regards to it before I moved here. How did you deal with that spiraling here, or that little bit of lost? How do you re-find yourself? You know, like, what do you do to remind yourself of what to do, or remind yourself of the goal? How do you get out of that rut, as people call it?
When you need to pay rent and you have no money. That is probably the biggest wake-up call you could ever come to. You know, so just to give a little background, like, I moved here, I worked in real estate. I think a lot of people listening will probably know how that industry is here in Dubai, but it's very cutthroat. It's super saturated with agents and high-paced. You've got to be on your game 24/7 if you want to make a living. It's all commission-based. You don't get a salary, so whatever you're making, that's what you're living off. And it's very much a product of whatever you put in, you're going to get out, which is what I liked, to be honest. And I mean, I moved here, I stayed with my aunt for about 4 months. It was very nice for me to stay with her, and it was very nice of her to, like, let me come and stay. But, you know, we're very different people, and I don't want to be living with my aunt, and I'm sure she doesn't want her 22-year-old, you know, nephew living with her. So very quickly made a decision to move out, and I was staying in a maid's room with my mates. They had a villa up in JVC, which is here in Dubai, and they were staying on the boats out here. So they had, you know, a really nice villa to stay in, and I was lucky enough to come stay in the maid's room there. Didn't have to pay rent. It was a small little 1 bed, and then my bag was on the floor for the, you know, my clothes and that. And it was a really hard period because they were doing super, super well. And again, that's what I mean, like, the 5 closest people, that's, you know, the product of who you're going to be in that period of time. And, you know, they were doing really well. They were earning really good money at the time. I wasn't. I was still trying to find my feet in real estate. Even 5 months down the line, you have one good month, one bad month. It's like a massive wave. And that was a really hard period because I wanted to push myself to get out of this phase I was in, but still the guys I was staying with, I've known them so long, I couldn't really vent that. You know, I sort of just had to put on a brave face and just carry on and deal with my shit at the time until I have that break where I really make that money, where I can have my own place and move forward from there. And that was the plan. And then they went off to Spain. I was supposed to stay in the house for a little bit longer, and then my mate called me on a Friday and said, you got to be out by Monday, pretty much. So I was sitting in the living room going through places to stay in Dubai, and I think I had at the time maybe 900 dirham in my account. And I was looking at hostels, gonna go stay in a hostel for like 2 weeks that came to like 900 dirham. And I was like going through all the math in my head and all this stuff. It was just something I had to deal with at the time. And then I was lucky enough, I had a call from my mates. He said, come stay with me. Stayed with my mate Warwick for, I think we stayed for maybe 7 months in the same room, 2 separate beds. And he pretty much just took me in. And that pretty much, you know, just helped me so much because he was very settled in the life that he was living out here, and I wasn't. So there was very much like a rock at a really bad period. And then bad things happen in threes. So I feel like my threes already happened, and then everything started to go a little bit uphill from there. Started to make a bit more money in real estate. Was able to pay, cover my part of the rent, cover my car, pay for the food. Actually start to begin actually living a life. And this must have been around 1 year after I moved here. And that's only when I actually felt I'm a little bit more settled. And then after that, me and Warwick eventually moved into a 2-bed somewhere out here, and got our own place to rent. Still got renting a car out here, looking to buy one soon. So it's all moving a little bit more forward at the moment. In this period of time, I've worked for 4 companies as well. So as you can imagine, very up and down, but very much the one thing that kept me going was definitely the fact that I never wanted to leave Dubai, not on my own accord. So I said to myself, if I'm coming to Dubai, I do not want to leave here unless I want to leave here. If I don't like the place and I don't like the people and I don't like the lifestyle and I leave, perfect, that's fine. 22, doesn't really matter. But if I leave because I don't have any money and I got nothing else to do and I lose a job or whatever, that's something that I never wanted to ever happen to me. So I just knuckled down, got out of the shit pretty much. And now just, finally look properly settled, I'd say now, coming into my 2nd year. So very up and down.
That's great. I mean, you made a lot of key points, which I think the generation of Gen Z, the generation below, a lot of the upcoming generation is going to struggle with, because I think the world's now very giving and not earning. When you're speaking about that, the commission base with a job, that it's the time and effort you put in, I'd love to talk on the topic of effort. How much effort you put into your life. It can't just be that you're going to sit back and think all the effort's going to come to you, or your motivation. Like, you got to stay disciplined with your effort. You don't want to do something, but you have to do it. So don't let your mood, I'm pretty sure you went through it, like, don't let your mood dictate what you do. So effort is very important in what you've said, because why don't we put our best effort forward? Why don't we treat it like it's the first day on the job, or a relationship, treat it like it's the first time you fell in love with them, or treat it like the first time you drive and that you're so focused. I think people struggle with the thought of it takes too much effort. But if you really want it, you should be putting in the effort. Yeah. And then I'm going to sound like a broken record from all my podcast episodes, but choices. You said you don't want to leave here or abandon your goal of being here without it being on your own terms, without being it that you choose to leave. You want to strive here and do whatever you can, whether you fishing at the bottom of the barrel to, living the great life. It was on your choice. You choosing to fight every day, and you choosing to be the person you want to be, which people struggle. They give up right before everything works out. Like you said, you struggled for months, but then there was a helping hand through Warwick, and that's brilliant, because these days people take help for granted. They have an egotistical thing that, it's a weakness asking for help, or someone's lending a hand, I can't do it by myself, so I'm a failure. But in life, we're not supposed to live alone. Like, that's why there's so many of us. One person can't do a whole thing. So it's a truly admirable story to get where you are now. Another thing I just wanted to talk on, this Dubai life, right? Do you think it's portrayed differently to the world than what it is living here?
100%, 100%. You know, don't get me wrong, like what the world sees Dubai as is what a small portion of Dubai is. You do have the glam, you got downtown, you got the Palm, you know, you've got Blue Waters, Dubai Marina, you've got some amazing places, and you know, you've got the supercars and everything like that. And what you see as an outsider looking in is pretty much a very, very small part of what Dubai really is. And then you move a little bit further out, and then you just see how much Dubai has evolved to become its own self-sustaining city, pretty much. You know, you've got all these villa communities with so many families that have moved out here now. And then you've got areas like where I stay, JVC. I mean, JVC is just like a normal suburb, pretty much. And then there's like a few 5 or 6 other suburbs all around that. And that you will never hear about that because Dubai wants to portray themselves as the place to be, the glam, everything like that. And don't get me wrong, I do feel the positives of Dubai outweigh the negatives. I mean, even in the small scale of just the safety, everything works, which is great. Coming from South Africa, I mean, barely anything works. So it's a nice little change. You know, you've got access to everything just from your phone. So in terms of actually living life out here, it's really, really great. The glam part is a very small part of it. You know, the actual, there's so many times where I sit on my balcony with my mates and I'm like, Dubai is so similar to South Africa in so many ways. You still got, you know, the workers doing the construction. You still got real estate agents. You still got people who work as accountants. The city still runs the same. The places that we live in now kind of looks like Sandton a little bit at times, or like, I don't know, Randburg, small places in Johannesburg that I'm referring to. So it's got a lot to offer, and there's still so much more that they are building here. It's actually a bit ridiculous at times, but you know, even though this is the place that I want to be now, it probably won't be the place I'll be at forever. I think a lot of people might have the same thoughts, but yeah, I think it's a great place to be now, especially for myself. And I mean, I want to ask you, you've just moved here, you know, so what are your thoughts, initial thoughts on being here in Dubai? You know, you were here earlier as a vacation, now you almost officially moved here with your family. What's the initial thoughts so far, just being out here?
Yeah, so last year, obviously, you saw me one of the worst of the worst. I wasn't who I am. I was so lost. It was a hard time for me. I really struggled here, and I projected my feelings onto this place, you know, because I kept thinking of, I want to be home. I want to stay in comfort. I want to be around what I know. You know, I didn't want to grow. I didn't want to step out of my comfort zone and approach failure in the way of trying new things. You know, but since I've got here now, I love it. I think it is so much better. The fact I can walk around at night, the fact there's so many available things. Like you said, it works. There's things that work here. I mean, what you order comes in 15 minutes or less. Mm-hmm. You know, that the roads are always flowing. Yes, there's traffic, but it still moves. You know, it's not a standstill. Technology works great here. Everything is just, the service as well is brilliant. You know, you treat it so well. The people are so respectful. It's safe. Like when I go play basketball in the afternoon, kids come and approach me. You know, back South Africa, you don't get that. You know, there's so many dangerous things happening there. Yeah. But I've really fallen in love here. Like you said, I don't know if it's my goal to stay here forever. I don't think it is. It's mainly the heat. That's my biggest thing. Struggling just being in the middle of the desert. But learning more about this place, it just makes me realize how much thoughts and process and efficiency, and they care for the people here, you know? Like the way they've built this place is accommodating, it's accepting, it's respectful, which I think, I can't say the rest of the world because I've only traveled to a few places, but I think in general, people in the world take for granted that respect, that let's work in harmony, let's be collaborative, you just respect the rules and the laws and things flow well. Yes, there's some like petty crime here and there, but it's dealt with, you know, it's taken seriously. It's not like we're going to give up, we're just going to let it be. We're going to solve this case regardless, because here they just want a peaceful place. They want everyone to love where they live and love what they're creating. You know, I do know that it has been a struggle in terms of job-wise to find. You know, I'm grateful for, I still have some sort of income, my parents still have income, but you know, it is definitely difficult because there's so many people coming in and there's so many different availabilities and what space you want to go into. But I have to say overall, like you said, positives outweigh the negatives by far. It's actually something that I'm realizing now as well when you were speaking about your choices that you don't want to go home, or, I never look at where I just want to be. Sometimes I look at where I don't want to be. And I think that's so important, because people are like, I want to be rich, for the sake of being rich. But they never look at, I want to be rich because I don't want to be poor. You got to think of those things, that sometimes the negative you really have to lock in on and let it scare you, but use that fear as a motivation, not as I'm going to sit in this agony and pain. Use it to be, I'm going to be better than this. Which I also like that you said earlier, that it's about being better and better, and that you're getting better and better. So in regards to that, what is like your thought process or your feelings towards that betterness, like that people, I'm sure you've seen it with the friendship groups or just people in general, where they like to sit in this, oh, life has happened to me, it's like, I hate it, but they're not working on bettering themselves, because once you better yourself, you can better your life, right? So your opinions on that, as someone that I think has their head screwed on really right and has the right mindset and the right ideas and the right morals and values.
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, I have one massive, to me, it's a massive issue on myself, sort of aligned with what you're saying now, is like the bettering yourself. That's one thing I struggle with all the time, to be honest. I have I've programmed my head pretty much to put so much effort into my career and into my job, to make sure that every day that I go and work, I'm doing as much as I possibly can. Not every day, but I'd like to think I try to every single day, to work as hard as I can, to keep pushing myself to earn the money that I'm pushing myself to earn. And I do get to that point where I neglect the self-growth part, coming home, reading, journaling, gymming every day. Those three things I don't think I do every single day, or I should be doing them every single day. There's so many things you should be doing, shouldn't be doing. And if everyone had a great growth mindset, if everyone had the, so locked into what they know will help them to grow themselves, the world would be a very different place. I think one thing I'm learning now more than ever is that, like, sometimes I go to bed and I'll be like, okay, tomorrow or Monday next week, I'm going to start this whole thing where I'm going to read 10 pages, I'm going to do this every day, I'm going to gym every day, I've tried that about maybe 20 times in my life and it doesn't work. And I ask myself, why does that not work? I realized that right now, the life I'm living, to completely change it, to have such a self-growth mindset towards my everyday, day-to-day tasks, is something that I can't change overnight. So I think, to answer your question in terms of the growth for people, from my experience, what helps the best is choose one thing, do it, make it a habit. After that, go to the next thing, do it, make it a habit. Small things could even be shower immediately after you wake up, for instance. For me, I do the same thing every single morning, which helps so much because I know how I'm going to be 10, 12, 1 o'clock later in the day, because I do the same stuff. That helps me so much more. And then, as we go on, as work gets better, as the days get better and the weeks and the months, I can then come to myself and say, right now I should be doing this as well in the mornings. Then I should be gymming every single day. And over time, I will hopefully build up that amazing self-growth mindset to be living the life that I like to think I want to be living. I do feel you lose that in Dubai a little bit because it's so fast-paced out here. You're talking to so many people on the daily basis. You're seeing so much on Instagram. On Instagram, all the other people that you meet, you see them online, you see what they're doing. And it's almost like you're constantly chasing something else out here. If you're back to South Africa, you will most likely know what's happening in South Africa where you are. You're going to know where the clubs are. You're going to know the parties that are close by. It's all pretty much, you can revolve your head space around what's happening. Dubai, there's so much that happens. There's so many places to go to, so many places to see, so many people doing so many different things. You constantly feel like you're falling short on the life you should be living out here. And then you fall into like a spiral. You start pushing yourself to do these things that you want to be doing, and then you start doing them, but then maybe you don't have the financial backing to do that. And then now you're going out all the time, trying to be with the people that you kind of want to be with, and now you're not gymming, you're not doing any self-growth, you're not eating the right food. You're losing what makes actually your lifestyle. You're losing that. And that's been my biggest problem. I sat down on myself like, I don't know how many months ago, and I realized I don't have a lifestyle. And that was a little bit of a scare for me. I didn't eat really good food. I didn't gym all the time. I might have been taking work seriously 3 times a week, and the weekends was all over the place. And I didn't have stuff that to me would make a lifestyle. And I've been changing that as I go, trying to be better, trying to improve it as I go. I now want to play more golf. For me, that's what I want my lifestyle to be a part of. I want to play golf every weekend. I want to gym every day. I want to eat good food. I want to spend time with the mates I have now and not keep trying to make more friends out here in Dubai. Just try and actually live the lifestyle that I want to live out here. And then everything else will come. That's what I truly believe. And I feel like people miss that a little bit in Dubai, if that makes sense.
I think you're great. I think people miss it out in general because what you said in terms of, first I'm going to rewind a little bit here when you say like SA to Dubai, like there's so many things to do, and like in SA you kind of know what's what, what club to go to. It's so limited there, like of what you can do and the people you're surrounded with, and not disregarding people in general. But when we were there, from our personal experiences, the people you're surrounded with and love, the highest of highs doesn't match the highest of highs here. Like the highest of highs here, it just keeps going. And what I really like about that though is the fact that there's always something to learn. There's always something else to chase. I think we are constantly going to chase a feeling or some goal or some achievement because we're not going to learn everything. The smartest person isn't the person that knows everything or is doing everything. It's the person that's wanting to learn, the person that wants to keep striving, asking questions, wanting to experience things. And when you were saying the whole habits thing, building it, at least that self-awareness is there. I think a lot of people are so scared to sit with themselves like you did and actually have a serious chat with who they are, not hearing it from someone else, but you speaking almost in a mirror and reflecting, is this who I want to be? Is this where I want to go? Is this what I want to become? Is this the life I want to live? Like you said, no lifestyle, and that's important. What lifestyle are you choosing? Are you choosing to go drink and party every weekend, which is acceptable, in terms, like to have fun. But I think people use it as an escape, or that is all they want to do, but they don't want to work towards that. They rather just have it go, feel like shit, put 3 times, like you said, a week effort into work, when it should be, I'm gonna work hard, treat myself to a party, work hard again, chill this weekend, surround myself with the right people instead of trying to chase new people because, I met them. Like the lifestyle is so important, and your routine, and most importantly, your discipline towards it. You can have a routine, but are you going to stick to it? Yeah. What's the goal behind it? So that's like brilliantly said. I think it's really admirable that you have that self-awareness, that you can sit with yourself, because really the world is so scared to sit with their own thoughts. I think people would rather go and hear from someone else like, hey, you need to switch on, but they will never look at themselves. They know they need to switch on, but they won't come to that thought originally. They'll know it deep down. They know that's their fear, that, hey, I'm not the person I want to be, but they'll do nothing about it. They don't want to sit and accept that's their reality. They rather put on a mask and be, I'm okay, but really deep down, you're not.
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to add on to that, the sport is a scary place. It really is, and if you start getting into that mindset of trying to chase something, not a goal, but trying to chase something, that is such a bad, I think, mindset to have, and I've had that mindset for so long. I'm constantly, I was trying so hard to be in such a mind space of pushing myself to achieve this thing, pushing myself to achieve this, but then over time you very quickly need to learn that at our age, living in the present is more important than pushing yourself to achieve, all these other things that you want to achieve. Yes, you need to have goals. Yes, you need to strive for those goals, but you also need to live in the present, because the present is what is going to help you for the future. If I want to be in 10 years' time running a company, owning a company out here in Dubai or South Africa or whatever like that, I need to have connections. I need to have this and this and this. And these are the building blocks days. This is what your 20s are for. And I saw this one really interesting quote, and I'll probably butcher the quote a little bit, but it was, in your 20s, you either live up your 20s and then you fall short in your 30s, or you work through your 20s, you put your head down in your 20s and you live the life you want to live in your 30s, but you're not going to be, living it up in that 20s.
I do like that. Something similar I heard was, do you rather want to be an underlived 20-year-old and a skillful 30-year-old, or an unskilled
That's
third year
it.
old
Don't
and
butcher it
living
like
in your
I did.
20s. Yeah, but it's hard to paraphrase because we keep it in our heads, and the point of it is that we have something that sits with us, even though we can't paraphrase it right. We know the morals behind, or the story it's trying to tell, and the lesson we're trying to learn from it, which is great. And as you're saying that of the whole chasing a feeling, this gets me to, people love to chase this thing of, oh, this is the best time of my life, or this is the best thing that's happened. And I get that, but there's always going to be more. Nothing lasts forever. No feeling is final, right? You can be sad, you can be happy, you can feel euphoric, you can feel like life is hell, but it passes over time. I think when you say the present, it's so beautiful because people struggle to sit with that day, like, I'm good today, I'll be better tomorrow. But people are always like, what's the next thing? What's happening that day? We're so far focused in something that might not even happen. Why not focus on what is currently happening? What am I going to do today that makes me better in the future? Instead of, what am I going to do tomorrow that makes me better the next day? And then you take the day off today. It doesn't make sense. And it is a scary thing. I think people look more in the past and more in the future than they look now. I don't think people can sit presently in the moment with themselves or with other people. I mean, it's so hard because in a world where we see connection, we avoid it so much. And this is speaking on presence, because you sit with a friend, but you're checking your phone, or you sit with a friend and you're talking about a problem that's coming in that may never happen, but you don't want to sit with a friend and speak about, like, how are you doing right now? Like, how are you feeling right now? What's happening currently? So that's brilliant. I think presence practice is very much needed.
No, 100%, 100%. To touch on a small side topic that I kind of wanted to also talk about, comparison.
Mm-hmm.
I think the comparison is such a killer in this life. It's healthy in certain ways, but in so many ways, I try and not compare myself to anyone else. And I think that is something that has made me more self-aware, is being here in Dubai. So I think in Dubai, you're constantly comparing your life that you're living here to everyone else's, because the situation of you moving to Dubai is all pretty similar. And then you see this guy doing that, this guy, all these crazy things. And I want to touch up a little bit on comparisons from your side, because you being in South Africa, you are someone who knows so many people, someone who is a part of, a family who have lived an amazing life, and for you, in terms of comparisons, how do you view that?
So one of my biggest pet peeves or irritations is when someone compares me. I've had a lot of terms, family-wise, friends-wise, of like, why can't you be like them, or why can't you do this, And I realize they live their own life. You may be able to see something, but someone else might not be able to. Or you may be able to be capable of this, but someone may not be able to. Or you can think differently. Everyone, that's what makes you human, that we're so unique. And comparison, there's two terms. I like when you said it can be used for better, but it's mostly worse. The better is admiration, the better is admiration in terms of, I'm comparing myself to you because where do I want to be like you, but I'm not looking like, oh, you're so lucky, or, oh, this is what I wish I had. It's, how can I get to where you are? How can I learn what you did? That comparing is so good, willing to learn from the comparison and almost have a role model to look up to, or a mentor, instead of this jealousy and this little bit of hatred and this, this egotistical feeling of, oh, they did this because they don't know my situation or my circumstances. Comparison kills that. That kills the ability of us to connect. Now, because you live a better life, because you're putting the effort and work in, and I'm not doing the same thing, I want your results. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. And comparison honestly does kill so many things in the world. I don't understand it. I hate it. A big thing, one of the stories I had was I was away in December sometime, last December, Cape Town, and had a party with friends and family. And one of the friends and family came to me and they said, why can't you be more like this guy? Look how free he is, look how amazing he is and whatnot. And it hurt me. I was like, don't compare me, because I'm not them. I'm who I am. Do you love me for me, or do you love me because you want me to be like someone else? Yeah. And eventually the more stories came out, and he wasn't a great guy. Behind the scenes, he was doing some dodgy things and stuff, and the person eventually apologized to me, and I'll always be accepting of an apology. But it just shows there's so much more beneath the surface behind comparison. Yes, on the outside it looks so good, but you don't know what they did to get there. Have you asked them what they did to get there? Are you doing the same things? But no, you want their life without doing the things or going through the things they went through. So comparison's terrible. Like you said, even here, I look around and you just think, do that, do this. Like, there's so many things here that you want to achieve, and you see someone else get it, and you look at yourself and you're like, which way do I want to go with this? Do I want to be motivated by it, or do I want to drag myself down with it? Do I want to be a victim to the comparison, or do I want to be a survivor of the comparison?
100%, you know. It's even the small examples are like when you see a Ferrari or a Lamborghini drive past you, and then you look at it and that's either motivation for you, or that is either going to make you feel defeated, because mentally you might be comparing yourself to that person, saying that guy looks like he's 22, 25, in his 20s, driving a Lamborghini, driving a Ferrari. From that mindset, it's so bad, because you're surrounded by that here in Dubai all the time. And then alternatively, on the other side, you completely diminish the comparison part and you look at it as how it is, and you go, wow, I want that. That's motivation. And then that is something I think in Dubai you need to very quickly separate yourself from. You either are looking at everything around you as motivation to be better, or you're looking at everything around you as a comparison to yourself. Two completely different lives you're going to be living straight off the gates. And that's something that I like to think of very quickly now, move those two things away, and trying to push myself more to just see everything as motivation in Dubai and make the most of it. But I mean, that it kind of aligns to your first question of Dubai, the glam, everything like that. You know, that's the first two things that everyone needs to straight out the gates decide for themselves. How do they want to view everything around us?
I think not just general in Dubai, I think in life as well.
Yeah.
People need to ask themselves, what do you want to do with your life? What do you want to make yourself of? Because we've got one life, whether we like it or not, whether what you believe currently, no existing other, whatever beliefs, respect to all, but currently the life you're living is the life you should focus on. There is no, this is going to happen, this is going to be this, or in the next life or in another universe, this is the life we get. This is the only chance we have right now for all we know. Like, what do you want to make of it? I think people get so sucked up in the different forms of success. You know, like success is either money, but your success might be a family. Another success could be traveling. Like, there's so many different versions of it, but what does it mean to you? You know, I know you're a very passionate and purposeful person. And I think seeing that from you as well as a human being, like seeing how animated you are, how much feeling you can show on yourself for something you really enjoy is so brilliant, because people lose that. You know, they kind of chase someone else's purpose. They're like, that's cool, I want that. You know, so I'm gonna follow their path. But then down the line, you kind of think, do I really want this? Was this for me, or because it looked good? You know, so do you truly desire something, or do you want other people to see you desire that? And I think that's so important in this space, and I think in the world in general. And I don't think a lot of people think that way, which I really enjoy. And I think it also comes down to the role models and the guidance we have. You know, I think we've been very blessed in our circumstances. I do believe that you aren't a product of your circumstances. You know, you have the choice to go and change your life or change your ways or look at better things, but there is some sort of privilege with how we've been brought up. You know, we come from good families, we've always been supported, not much of a struggle. I know our families had their things, but we've been given a good life and good opportunities, and we can't take that for granted. So many people do. They get, as we used to say, lost in the sauce, but they get lost in the whole, I'm fine, you know, life is given to me, but what are you going to make from that? What are you going to make from the opportunities you're given, the blessings you've been given? You know, you got to live life with some sort of gratitude instead of anxiety or just ignorance. I think ignorance, the whole ignorance is bliss talk, I can't stand that. The whole nonchalant, I need life to be exciting and I need to be happy about the life I live, which I beg and urge people to be more grateful for whatever circumstance you're in, because the struggle or the success, all of it adds up to your life, who you are as a person, what you achieve, the family you'll have. I think it's so important, that just gratitude for everything. And I see that a lot in you as well. You know, you never complain. Your real estate clients, I've seen you complain, but that's normal. But from life, you generally are a person that practices great qualities of gratitude and thankful. And I've never seen you upset with the struggle or let the struggle beat you down. And how does that determination build up in you? Where do you get that determination from, that you just don't give up and that you're grateful for everything you go through? Like you said, you don't regret anything that's happened. You wouldn't change a thing. And so many people in life say, oh, I regret this, I wish this happened, but you can't change the past. How do you change it from thinking, oh, this happened to me, I wish it didn't, to, you know what, I see why that happened. it led to this moment? I think that's something I really want to touch on from your perspective.
I think for me, the biggest thing is that I do look in the past and then I look at myself now. And I say, if you want to be regretting things in the past, then you wouldn't be where you are right now. And let's say even when you look at yourself right now and you don't want to be who you are right now, then again, look in the past and you see where you can change yourself and become better. I think for me, looking at how much I've learned just by pushing myself to do the things that I want to do has definitely helped me to keep that sort of mindset going. Moving away, wanting to go into this industry, wanting to go into yachting, and then 2 years later, just flipping it and going into real estate in a brand new country, in a city I've never been to before, in the most competitive real estate market in the world, arguably. I still look back and I go, that's a bit ridiculous. And so many people will have the same thoughts and go, why did we do that? It's ridiculous. But then you look at the things I've learned, the skills I've gained, everything like that, and then who I am now. And then I go, okay, well, I am who I am now because I made that move. I didn't make that move because I didn't like that, so I did that, and etc., etc., etc. And then you go, okay, well, what's next? Where's the next move? I'm in my job now. What's next for my job? Where's the next step forward? And that's the mindset that I'd like to think that I want to keep happening, staying in the present, as I mentioned, and then moving forward from that. Not getting caught up in your past, but using that as an advantage. That's something that I like to think everyone should be doing. And yeah, we talked about comparisons earlier and how comparisons, shouldn't be doing that. I'm going to eat my words a little bit, but the only comparison you should actually be comparing is your past self and then who you are now. That's what I do all the time. Look at who I was, the skills I had, the age I was at, what I was doing, the life I was living, then looking at myself now and doing a direct comparison. It might not sound healthy that I'm saying it out loud, but to me, that's been a really big impact for myself moving forward and just keeping it all quite leveled in. For me, I haven't been in a relationship, for instance, for 3 years now, pretty much. It's just pretty much been me. All my mates have relationships. Everyone around me pretty much has a relationship. So for me, for so many years, it's just been pushing myself, growing my skills, honing my life just towards myself. And I think that I look back and I'm like, okay, well, it's a blessing, to be honest. Maybe my life would be different. If I did have a missus 2 years ago, where would I be right now? Never know. But I wouldn't have the skills I have now, I believe, because of the amount of dedication and work I put into, because it was just for me. I wasn't buying anyone anything else. I wasn't doing anything else for anyone else. English. It was just for me, So that mindset, there's so many different mindsets you can go into. I definitely think that the growth from where I've been to where I am now is what helps me to have that belief of where I'm going to be in 5 years' time. I believe in myself that I will be perfectly fine, because me 5 years ago is so much different to who I am now. So just building up that inner belief.
I do love that as you were saying, the comparing to your past, I actually thought of it. That is a good comparison to have, because you're kind of doing, I love the quote, you're not where you want to be now, but thank God you're not where you used to be. What we used to pray for in the past is what we have now. 5 years ago, I wouldn't know who I was. I used to pray, I wish I found my purpose, I was better at this and whatnot. And then you look at now and we complain about now, but I'm not who I was. I'm so much better than I am now. And that kind of strives that motivation of being better. And then another one, when you say relationships, you're actually so true. We're young. I don't believe you can find love in people at any age, right? That's fine. But when you say, like you said, you focus on yourself, I think people have this need and fear of they don't like to be alone. They need someone else to understand them or trust them or give them love. But you should be doing that for yourself first. You should be giving the same love. How can I expect you to understand me if I don't even understand myself? Or how can I ask you to trust my word when I don't even trust mine? I think there's a certain process of involving someone else's life in yours. You got to kind of get your life sorted first. And I'm not saying being super successful, but understand your morals, your values, who you are, what you want to do, set out clear of the person you want to be and act like it before jeopardizing someone else to come into your life and potentially risking their goals and values. So I think it's great that you focus on yourself, because that's what we need, right? So at the end of the day, relationship or not, friendships or not, you are you. It's your life. You got to have your back. You got to do what's best for you. And that comes later. Like, I know 100% you're doing best for you because down the line, you want a family, you want to support, you want to give them the best life you can, you know? And that can't come with, not to say that people are distractions, but, you know, it depends how you handle those situations. People can be distractions. You know, everyone has their own process of going and how they got to learn. And it's all about figuring out who you are. You know, and I think it's great. I think you did take time away from that and you still have fun. You know, you might be with someone here or there, but your main goal is, you know, how you want to treat yourself and what you need to do for your own life, because it is your life. You're not living for someone else. You know, you're living to achieve what you need to do.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So I had a question for you. In terms of your, you know, your growth, you've been on an amazing journey so far. You know, you started this podcast, you've really changed yourself in so many positive ways from what I've seen, from my point of view, over the past, I don't even know, 4 or 5 years, right? Even if you look back to when you started at college. My question I want to know is, how did you overcome that initial thought of, you know, wanting to start a podcast and then going and just doing it? Was it a immediate thought of, this is what I want to do, next day crack on and then go from there? Or was it a long process of you going through planning, the courage, building it up, and then going into starting the podcast? That's what I want to know.
So in reality, the backstory of it, I mean, everyone knows the purpose of the podcast and the goal of it. I mean, they're in the previous episodes, but of going about it, I mean, I've always wanted to do one. I mean, past 2 years, I've been wanting to, just because I've been watching them myself and they've helped my life so much. And I was so scared, and, you know, that fear of failing and that fear of putting yourself out there, you know, to the public, and whatever can come your way, positive or negative, you know, that holds you back. But I do have to give gratitude and admiration to my father, because he kind of took it. And when I told him, you know, at first it was, do that on the side, you know, practice it when you're ready. And ready there is no right moment, you know, like I wanted things to be perfect. I wanted a camera, I wanted all the fancy equipment. And then eventually he did one. He's straight off the bat. I mean, at the age of 47, when I saw him do it, it really inspired me, because if he can do it, I can do it, you know? So, I mean, it's such a simple thing. I have the mics, I have a phone set up, you know, I just get the people, because at the end of the day, it's the intellectual property you want to be for. Who's going to care about necessarily the fancy thing, the studio? That will come over time, but it's just about starting, you know. I don't care what people will end up thinking, because it's a positive output. If someone's going to put down the positive output, then it's clearly not for you, and there's no judgment for that. But then it's not the right target audience for me. So honestly, the process was just do it, take that step, you know, scared or not. And sooner or later you become comfortable with it. You become familiar with the fear. And that's what I did with starting the podcast. I mean, it's so simple. We find a nice place to record. I get a great guest like yourself and the people that have been on before, and then just mics and a phone. You know, you don't have to have all the fancy things. You just got to start, and yeah, you got to come from a humble beginning. Not everything's going to be perfect, and that lesson comes along in life. You know, nothing is going to be perfect. There is no, that's the right moments. That's going to be the moments I do it, because the more you postpone it because of fear, you're not going to do it. So when I saw my dad take that step and he put all his pride aside, his reputation, to try to put something positive out there, I thought, why can't I do it? Why can't it be me? And now I think, instead of why me, why can't it be me, you know? There's a basketball player I love, Russell Westbrook, and his shoe brand used to be Why Not. I don't know if it's still continuing now, but his shoe was Why Not, because he always thought, why not do it? Why not take that shot? Why not go push yourself in that zone? Why not get uncomfortable? And that leads me on something of, we take so much inspiration from not just role models in our lives, people we see on TV, athletes, celebrities, you know, all these influencers. And it's such a key thing to your life, because you have a guideline, you can see that something's possible. And what goes on about that is the behind the scenes. You know, people think that this podcast I just record and I might outsource it, or I just post it. There's so much editing involved, there's so much planning, there's so many technical difficulties, there's so many topics you want to discuss, and, you know, the timing, if someone else is available, you're available. And it makes me really think about the effort behind the scenes. You know, everyone wants applause for what they're doing, but really what matters is what you're doing without the applause, without the views, without anyone watching you. What are you doing in your time alone with what you want to create, you know? So the podcast kind of just comes that motivation from all the inspirations I look at. I mean, you look at the basketball players, the football players, parents, friends, you know, people that just strive and just show you that things are possible. And on that topic, I mean, I think you'll agree. I mean, you love Formula One, you love football, cricket. The amount of influence those people have on our lives, yet we criticize them so much. You know, we will say a player has a bad game or someone has a bad race, and you're like, oh, they're so shit, you know, they shouldn't, how are they there, what have they done? But you haven't seen the work they put in to get to where they are. Behind the scenes, they're training, they're practicing, you know, but you're so quick to judge someone without knowing the full story. A lot of these people, it's a do or die for them. You know, it's to get out of that poverty or get out of the situation they were in, and then they become successful, and all of a sudden you want to hop on. Now you just want to be, oh, I support you now because you made something of yourself. But it's about also the people that support when they're growing, when they're putting in that things, seeing it or not, in the background, if they have to support and be the number one fan. You know, it's about just behind the scenes of what you're doing in your daily life. So I want to throw that back to you, of the inspiration you take from role models like that or influences like that on your life that we're not necessarily close to and can see physically, but we admire through a TV screen.
You know, it's like, in terms of the role model part, you know, there's always going to be athletes out there. I think for a lot of guys out there who can relate, there's going to be athletes who you're going to look up to. It's going to be those people who are in the spotlight all the time, that just have an ability to impact the world with just their presence, you know. And you know, taking a role model, like for me, for instance, like athletes such as, like, if you look back at Sebastian Bertholdt, for me, he got me into Formula One. He was my role model when I was racing, when I was coming up, when I was younger, right? And then you look at, for footballers, so many footballers that we always talk about on a daily basis, you know, these things that they said on the media and all these things that you take from that. And it's an interesting thing that you're talking about, because why do we take so much of what they're putting out there in the world, I wouldn't say so seriously, but we really do. It impacts a lot of our lives in terms of the conversations that we have, you know, all the time. At least 90% of the time, it's talking about football, talking about sport, talking about this and that. And it's a funny thing if we lock it a little bit back into like the podcast part about it, is that why is it that we take so much of, I guess, the negatives that they say so much more than the positives that they say? You know, I think if you look at a role model, it must be so challenging to be that athlete, to be a role model for the world, because you're constantly criticized on everything that you say. You're constantly criticized on everything that you do. That is something I take more than anything, is just the way they're able to deal with that. You know, able to deal with the criticism, able to take a question, think about it, understand if that's going to impact them in the future, negatively, positively, and then react to that on a global scale through the media, you know. And that's something that I like. The one biggest thing, based on your question earlier, that I take, especially from these athletes and these people that we look up to, is the way that they deal with being in the limelight mentally, being so self-conscious of themselves in a very positive way. I think that's such a great thing to take, because I think we need to do that every single day for ourselves. I think we do it every single day, but it might not be positive. I think it's a lot of I think it's a lot of self-thinking, a lot of maybe reflection in a negative light, a lot more than positive. And in terms of, you know, with these guys, if we're thinking like this now, and we're just, you know, essentially just being ourselves, we're not in the limelight, we're not in the media yet, anything like that, and then you look at them who are in that limelight, in that media, in that spotlight all the time, they deal with it so well. Why can't we deal with our own impacts and negative thinking every single day, if you know what I mean? And yeah, you know, I like to think, for me, like, if I want to add on to this, and maybe it's a small little side note question that I want to pass over to you, but for me, the biggest role model that's made the biggest difference in my life, it's not even those athletes that you see out there. It's not even the people in the media. It's not even the guys that everyone can relate to and know, Cristiano Ronaldo, Hamilton, Bertholdt, all these guys. It's my uncle back at home. And then it's a funny thing when I say that, because for so many people, you kind of want to relate to these athletes in the limelight, in the media, because it's a relatable thing for everyone else. But then for a role model, it needs to be someone that you can look up to in a very realistic way, in a very serious way, that can benefit you in the future. And for me, that is my uncle. He is able to take the same things that we're talking about now, the self-reflection, the thinking towards very difficult decisions, towards decisions in his life, similar to how these athletes are in maybe a different scale, but able to deal with it very well, and maybe put on a facade, but 9 times out of 10, deal with it and move on from it. So I'm gonna throw that back at you a little bit. Who's that person for you? Who's that person that's really you've looked up to in terms of even more than one person, intellectually, physically, really moved you over these past few years?
I do have to say it's a great question, because I think people do forget. We look at all these stars and, like you say, through the media, because it's out there, it's relatable to the world, but we forget about the people we have direct access to, the people that are in our daily lives, that we see every day or we have contact with. It's not like you can just shoot, like you said, Ronaldo or LeBron James or all those people a message and they can reply and impact your life. When you have someone to really look up to, and some are less fortunate than others, they have no one to, and that's going to go into a point I'm going to speak about now. But my 2 biggest role models is my grandfather and my dad. My relationship with my dad changed over time, and he really saved my life, and I've understood what he's done for me. And my grandpa is just this pillar of humbleness, strength, peace, happiness. Like, he just he's just authentic to who he is, and that inspires me, that everything will be okay as long as you do what you need to do. No one needs to be done. And my dad's also just a great sign of hard work beats talent, that they grew up from nothing and they've given me everything. And I see my dad's goals from his podcast and what he recently spoke about in his, where he says he wants to give everything back to his dad, my grandfather, because my grandfather sacrificed everything he had to give them a life that he never witnessed. And just that dynamic of both my dad and my grandfather really motivates me to be better, for the next generation, for my kids that are going to come. I've had great role models. I need to be one myself. And a big lesson I learned from both of them, which is going to tie into the whole direct access and unfortunate that you may not have role models or mentors to look up to. My dad and my grandpa both make a big point out of, as much as we look up to them, they shouldn't be the reason we motivated, or disciplined. That's got to come from you as well. You can't be motivated for someone else. You don't want to change because someone else is making you want to. You got to change because you want to. You got to be better for yourself. You don't want to be better just for someone else. It's great. It's a benefit because your family becomes supportive. You're showing that you can hold yourself. But most importantly, you got to look in the mirror and be like, I'm doing this for me. And that's a lesson I take from both of them, because my grandfather never pushed on my dad to do what he wants him to do. He gave my dad freedom of choice. Do what you want to do. I trust you. My dad's done that with me. He's never forced upon my life. He's always given me the option to choose what I want to choose, And I think it's really important to become your own role model, as we say these. Sports and, all these celebrities are great because it's a worldwide known thing where it's put into the media, and you see it on social media, you see it on YouTube, you can see it anywhere to search. But you shouldn't also need that motivation from someone else. That should be built up from you, that I have the courage to do something that's risky because I built that myself. And it's a really great question, because it's making me reflect that only now as we speak about it. And like you said, with your uncle, he's someone that you looks up to, you lean on to everything. He's thinking about the negative comments and how he deals with it. It's passed down. We got to be better for the next. There's a stage in life where you're no longer doing something for yourself. You got to look out for the future of your bloodline or your family, and you got to start that now to become that role model for yourself, so that you can become that role model for someone else. And speaking on the negative comments, of how all these athletes and people get hate, we don't get it like that because we're not in media or because we're not famous. But hate in general in the world is so heavy. Negative is everywhere around us. You wake up and you're like, oh, I've got to go to work, or you had a bad sleep, or the car, there's traffic, or those negatives are surrounded. But you got to learn to block that out, because I love the saying of, if you wouldn't take the advice, why would you take the criticism? If I'm going to get negative comments from some random person, or even my friend, because that will happen in life, there'll always be negativity, but why should that affect me? Why should I let someone else's mood and negative aspects or negative thought process change my thought process? Why am I going to let that affect me? I need to be okay with myself and block out the noise and say, listen, your negativity, I get it, I can understand it or whatnot, and try help them be more positive. But you're not going to let that power over you. Yeah. You're not going to let someone else's mood dictate your mood. And I think it's really impressive because what changes from our normal daily lives to people in like the media world and famous is that they've got to get it from everyone. We get it from very few. And I think that's also something we do look up to. But not every problem is the same. They get negative reasons because people make them out to look bad or one wrong move. With us, it's generally how we're living life. Yes, we make our own wrong moves and stuff, but we should be thankful it's not spread across the world. And I think that's what a lot of people admire, is how humble people can be. I mean, before this, we were speaking about Caitlin Clark. She was a WNBA player that put the basketball on the map, and people are against her in the league, and there's so much controversy, but she literally says in interviews, you know, I don't know if I heard that, I'm not letting it affect me, because she's focusing on the game. She wants to inspire girls and more people to play the game that she loves. There's a bigger purpose greater than yourself, which ties back to being your own role model for the future, because we all are living for who we are now, but it's for the future of my kid, my family, my wife, you know, who you want to look after, who you want to repay, not just yourself, but those who were there for you in the struggle. And I don't know if you agree with that, because it comes to authenticity. Who you are, is it truly who you are? You know, the negativity, I don't believe one person is truly authentic or poised of this negative aspect. I think it's forced upon us. I think life makes it seem, or people in life make the world seem so bad. But if you're authentic to yourself, I don't think you find a day bad in your life.
Yeah, no, 100%. If you're true to yourself, then, you know, everything else around you shouldn't really matter. But it does, you know, it matters to so many people. And I mean, even like talk about another athlete very quickly, is like Max Verstappen, for instance, right? In terms of Formula One, you know, every Formula One driver wants to be that 8th world champion, you know, supersede Michael Schumacher, supersede Lewis Hamilton. Max Verstappen's the next up and coming. And they ask him point blank, what are you doing? Are you going to be here for the next 5 years? Are you going to push for that 8th world title? And he simply just goes, if I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. I don't really care. Because I'm here, and I realized that now more than ever, and this must have been, I think it was maybe 2023 or 2024 that he said this, but he realized that spending time now with the people around him now is more important than maybe the goals that every other person looking in to the sport will think is everything that matters. Every one of us who are supporters of that, looking as an outsider in, will think the biggest thing for these guys is to get that accolade, that 8th world title, everything like that. And then just one comment from Max distinguishes all of that thought that we have towards what we think that matters the most to them. And then it just brings you right back to reality, and then you look at yourself. And then you look at yourself and you go, what matters the most to me 10 years from now is that where my mindset should be, or should it be now in the present? What can I do now to better myself tomorrow, not to better myself in 10 years' time? I think a lot of people constantly try and look for the future, but bringing yourself back to self-reflection here in the present is the most important thing. And I take that a lot from the athletes. You know, a lot of them are like that. You do get a few. Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, they have dedicated so many years of their lives to beat each other, and in turn have just become two of the greatest footballers of all time, purely because, yes, they love the game, they love the stats, they want to be the best, most goals, everything like that, but that rivalry between the two of them just pushed them all the way to that point. I love hearing this from a lot of people, where it says if they didn't have each other, how good would Ronaldo have been without Messi, and vice versa. And you know, it comes back to these role models. We look at these role models, we look at these athletes, we look at them, we look at the way that they live their lives, we look at what we want to perceive them as, but 9 times out of 10, actually 100 times out of 10, that's not how it is. And you even said it like, you know, we might be if I wanted to become a footballer and I look up to, I don't know, Lionel Messi, and say I want to be as good as Lionel Messi, the likelihood of me being anywhere near as good as him is nowhere near. Straight from day one, I'm not working as hard as him immediately. But for us, we might be looking as an outsider in, going, they are something that we want to strive for. They are the goal that we want to become for a lot of the athletes, especially for a lot of people listening who might be younger, also athletic, looking to go into a sport, biggest thing for them is to notice who those role models are, what key points from them they need to take. But don't, as we said earlier, don't compare yourselves to them. You know, take the points, take what matters the most to what you think will help you, and then go from there.
As you speak of that as well, like it's great points of, you know, other people looking at them. Someone I think of, you know, like Desiree Doué, Lamine Yamal, these are people younger than us, 17, 18, you know. It makes you kind of reflect of like, what was I doing with my life? Whether or not I wanted to go into football, it's just how much they've dedicated to something that they love or their goal to become that generational talent or that hardworking person kids and older people look up to. You know, you drive strength from no matter what age. You can look at a 6-year-old and be inspired. You can look at an 8-year-old that looks at life a lot more brighter, but you're inspired because they literally are just authentic to themselves. They're just trying to prove to the world that it's possible, that you can do it, that anything is possible. You know, and I think a lot of people focus on it's impossible. I don't think they focus on everything is achievable that you put your mind to. It is a mindset
100%.
game. And that brings on to the whole athlete thing, and it relates to everyone in life. There's pressure, no matter what, there's pressure in life for anyone in the world. But people look at pressure like a problem, that it's something that shouldn't exist. But to me, pressure is privilege. You know, pressure, it's so nice that, well, I'm so grateful that you have a challenge that you're worn out by, but you chose it yourself. You know, like you got to choose your problems. Am I choosing that if I'm lazy, I'm going to sacrifice so much hours, so much time, so much energy on wasted effort or wasted potential when you could put it towards something greater, and you're going to look back and be, I'm so happy I had that pressure. When that's relieved, you're going to be that sense of achievement. You're going to feel so fulfilled. But no one realizes that we choose to do these things. You know, you choose to start that company, you choose to work that job, you choose to love that person, and then you want to complain about your own choice, but you knew the consequences of it. You knew what you wanted to struggle for. And I think it's just really going to match your values of how true are you to yourself. Like we spoke about earlier, are you chasing because it looks nice, or are you chasing because you truly desire it? And I think pressure is just such a big thing that we don't take enough gratitude in. You know, when it's all over, we will be happy for the struggles, we'll be happy for the problems, because you need problems in the world. If we don't have problems, the world would be a perfect place, and that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You know, but on that pressure for you, because I mean, you've had so much pressure, like we covered at the start, of, you know, you're staying at your aunt's, you're on the couch, then you had to be moving out 2 days after your friends had told you to. I mean, it drives you, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, 100%. You know, it's that pressure. It's also that fact of like, you could drop everything today and go back home and do whatever you can, you know, back home, or whatever opportunity lies there for you, or you just make a plan of where you are now and you push through it and you get to where you want to be. You know, at that point in time, I didn't even know where I wanted to be. I think at the time I didn't even want to be at the company I was with. You know, so everything around me, it just seemed like it wasn't working. And then, you know, I do honestly think like the industry I was in, or the industry I am in, definitely helps, because it's one of those things where if you have a really bad month or a really bad week and you're really down, it's a one night quick mindset change, and the next week you completely change your mindset and you work hard, you can make an opportunity happen for yourself. That's the one beautiful thing of, you know, being in real estate here in Dubai, is that if you go through a period in time where you're not doing well, it is directly influenced on your self efforts. That's exactly how it is. If you're not doing well in real estate, exactly, it's a very specific example, but if you're not doing well in real estate here, it's directly influenced by how much work you're putting in. There's no if, buts, or maybes, or nothing in between. It's literally parallel to that. You're putting in the efforts. There's months where I didn't put enough effort and I didn't come out with enough, and I put myself in shitty situations the next month. Completely self-reflected on that, realized it was all on me. Nothing else to say about that. Once you get around that, you understand that, and then you push through the next months, and then you put the work in, you actually see results happen. You go, oh my word, actually, I had results come through this month. That's insane. And you go, well, duh, you put in the work, you put in the hours. It's directly influenced. And that for me, I personally needed a literal life example of it. I was never a big believer on, you know how everyone says you get what you get based on the work you put in. I was never a believer of that, because to be honest, through my high school days, I was never one who was going to achieve the greater or beyond. I was never the one who was the best athlete in the class, the best this in the class. It was never that. But at that period of time, I never had confidence or belief in myself that if I put in the work, I could be that. Not once did I ever have that. Carrying on after school, coming into, now 4 to 5 years outside of school, 2 years in Dubai, only now I actually realized how much work you physically put in, how much work you actually do. There are results after that. And it changes your mindset completely. It really, really does. And it opens it up a lot more to just self-belief and manifestation. It's a big thing that I think a lot of people need to, having that, looking into manifestation, looking into writing down goals, looking into all the small things definitely helps, in my honest opinion. Where you asked me this 5 years ago, I'd say I have no idea because I didn't believe it.
And that's great because it shows how much change can happen in such 5 years sounds so long, but that goes by so quickly.
So quick, yeah.
And I mean, it is nice because as you say this, when you say mindset and when you say that it can change overnight, it's not necessarily your life is going to change overnight, but it's the step forward that leads to changing your life. It's the small things, like you said earlier, the routine, the habits, but it is originally back to that self-belief of knowing you can do it. I think so many people would rather back themselves that they can't do it than believe that they can. And where this comes from, who knows? Why the world makes it so raining down that there's more negative of you'll never achieve this, or you'll be a failure, or you can never be the best in the world. I don't know where that came from, because when someone thinks they're the best in the world, all of a sudden you're also wrong. I don't know if you ever saw Timothy Chalamet made a speech at I can't remember the specific award, but he said he wants to be the greatest. He strives to be one of the greatest of all time, like Michael Phelps, like Michael Jordan in his industry, and people hated him for it. And it proved to me, no matter what you do, someone's going to be disappointed or you're going to upset someone.
Yeah.
You can do something right or you can do something wrong, but you're going to disappoint someone. But you know what is the most important part of that? Is that he stayed true to him. You guys stay true to you. That's what being you is not worrying about what other people think. And this isn't a validation thing. This is genuinely that it's your life. You get to do what you want to do with it. And I'm not saying, go be a bad person because that's who you want to be. Like, I don't believe in that. I don't think there is bad in people. I think that's what the world has made you feel to be. There's always going to be a villain in someone's story. The stories are always going to be swapped. But in your life, what are you doing to make your life the best version of it? And I think it's just, it really comes down to, no matter what, you're just going to upset someone. So why not upset someone being yourself? Whether or not they understand you, that's not your responsibility. That's not on you. It's not your job to make someone know who you are or want to learn and understand the way you think and why you do things. It's the real people come when they can find you. And to be found, you need to show yourself. Not this hidden facade or this mask behind society of, I'm going to act this way because it worked for this person. No, you got to do what works for you.
Yeah. 100%. I want to take you back a few points that you made earlier, and something that stuck in my brain that I want to touch up on. So when we spoke about the podcast, you started the podcast, and you said there was a fear factor. I think it's a little bit in connecting to what we're talking about now with all the athletes and that. But for you, I want to touch up on that fear factor, because what was that specifically? Was that the outside noise that you were fearing coming into your life? Was it the fear of you maybe not doing a good enough job in your own eyes? What was it for you that you went, okay, I might not do this? You did it, but you might not do this because of this and this and this. What was it? What was that?
That's a great question. Straight to it is that I didn't know if I was capable of. What if I failed? What happens if it was just another project I wanted to start but never finished? Or, what would the world think of me? What would people think of you? Like, it was a validation thing. Was I doing the right thing? And eventually over time, as we also tie into authenticity, I just realized that's who I want to be. That's the purpose I want to give back. I'm a big service person. I love doing things for other people. But I was tired of chasing people, to be better or to change, or just be a good human being, or my worst pet peeve is someone says, I'm going to change, I'm going to do this, but they don't. Because now you're breaking your words with me and yourself. So I decided, let me create a platform, a community where people can join the journey that want to find me or find help from the guests like yourself to want to better themselves, to learn from. And it's not learn from that we highlight them, it's learn from our mistakes, our journeys, because you don't know who relates to us, who might be in a similar circumstance or situation or the exact same. So it was more of what the world would think of me and if I was going to be a failure. And on those 2 points, I realized I'm a failure if I don't try it, because then it was just a dream. I speak about, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to put myself out there. But if I don't do it, I'm actually failing, because I'm failing myself. I broke my own word. I didn't back myself. I didn't have my confidence or self-belief that what I wanted to do, I could achieve. And then the world validation is, what would people think? I don't care what people think. If they think negatively on it, that's them. It doesn't define me. It doesn't define my outputs or my intellectual property and who I am. And if they do agree with it, then I found my community. I found the people that I'm willing to grow with the journey. Even if I don't speak to them or have direct access, I can provide a safe space where people can share their journeys and their stories of trials and tribulations and their growth, and all in the purpose, as I've touched on in previous episodes, is just to change someone's life, because mine was changed by a very same thing. Not just the people I was around, but podcasts themselves. Hearing other people's stories, you get motivated, and it motivates yourself to do better. And those were the two factors I had to overcome. And now that it's happened, I'm so much better. I love who I am, whether or not other people do. It doesn't matter to me. And the people that love me, I know love me for me. They don't love me for someone I'm trying to pretend to be. And I think there was even a quote from Zlatan. He'd rather be hated than loved, because when someone hates you, you know they hate you. But when you're loved, you don't know if it's true. It might be for the moment.
Yeah. No, that puts it in perspective a little bit, doesn't it?
But that's what life is. It's not. It's all perspective of 100%. How you view things. I mean, for all I know, there can be several people out there that dislike me, hate me, want the worst for me, but that doesn't change anything. All that matters is what I do now with my life. I shouldn't worry about that outside noise, because what are they contributing to me? How's it going to change my life? The most it can change is I'm going to become negative and hate myself. Why would I let that happen? But yeah, coming on to that, just your thoughts on negativity, failure, outside world noise, authenticity. How do you feel about those topics?
Yeah, I think I think outside noise is an interesting one. How much you actually take and register from what other people say about you is a very slippery slope, should I say. And it could be a very slippery slope down the wrong slope. I think for a lot of people out there, and I'm 100% one of them, is that I may, in my past, I'd like to say now I don't, but more of in my past, take outside criticism, take outside criticism a bit too seriously, and with that, it definitely had a negative impact for sure. Hearing things that you might not want to hear, I know in my own self, I wouldn't have dealt with it the right way. I know a lot of people out there, I mean, even, us coming from boarding school, you're living with, 15 other guys, in boarding school, and you can see how they deal with outside noise, criticism, bullying, anything like that in school, and how they would shrug it off. And then for me, I look at myself back in the day and I'll go, well, I think I took it too seriously. I think I took what people thought of me too much. And I can be the first one to say for myself, that was the biggest drawback I had in my life, is that I took it too seriously, and then it aligned towards my own growth and my work ethic. Because for me, I felt that the more work I put in, I just had this notion that the amount of negativity I would be hearing on myself and not dealing with it the right way, the work I was putting in, I felt like wasn't enough. And then I had this notion in my head that if I kept on working this way and it's not enough, I'm going to be more disappointed than if I just didn't put in the right amount of work. And if I didn't put in the right amount of work, it's an excuse for myself to say, okay, well, you didn't make the you didn't make the first team because of this, because you didn't put the work in. At least I have an excuse. And then that outside noise became a little bit easier for me to deal with, because I already had an excuse in my own brain. And quickly changed that, I had to change that. It's a very, very negative mindset to have, especially for someone who's that much younger, at the age of 13 up to 18, coming over out of school. When you come out of school, you come out of that bubble. Now you're meeting people from so many different demographics of the world. And the biggest thing for me that I've learned, 1,000,000%, is how you should not give a shit about pretty much anyone's thoughts of you at all. I mean, I've met guys in Milan. I mean, I always look back, and there were these two guys that I met in Milan, and we all became really good friends at the time. They were the only two, I think, other two people the same age as me in the hostel. and they were both from Denmark. And their thought process towards just the life they were living was so different to everyone else in South Africa. Everyone else in South Africa is very much trying to be part of a group, trying to be part of this, trying to do this, go out there, always trying to make something of themselves constantly. That's just a South African trait, I feel. These two guys from Denmark, they couldn't give a shit about anything. They were so happy to be themselves, to be traveling themselves. They had their own work. They were so level-headed, and they was just so open to talking to anyone about anything and not caring what they thought. It was very freeing at the time to be around people like that, because then you realize very quickly, okay, well, if they don't give a shit, why should I give a shit? You know, in a good way. I'm obviously not saying don't give a shit about anything, but towards yourself, not giving a shit about what other people think of you is probably the biggest thing. The biggest thing I've come over is that, for sure. And it's a big thing that I think a lot of people need to come over. Come over is the right word,
yeah.
I assume, yeah. And I mean, you look at the athletes again, and you look at how they deal with it, and how they overcome it. It's obviously, you know, they're a lot older, they've had media training, whatever like that, but that I take a lot of it seriously, and I like to look at it and like to learn from it. And then over time, you know, now I look at myself now, and now more than ever, the opinions of people around me, unless I care about their opinion or ask for their opinion, it doesn't matter to me.
That's great though, like all the experiences you telling now, how it affects you, like the Denmark guys, how the role models, the famous role models influence your life. It's all because they're staying true to them, you know, like they block out the outside noise and they only let in what they align with, you know, like if the opinion you say matters, because at the end of the day, an opinion is just that, an opinion. It's not stated fact, it's not the truth, it's not your truth, it's not a fact about you, it's someone else's perspective of you, but that doesn't mean it's the right perspective of who you are. You're not defined by how someone else sees you, because also people see you differently. Someone is seeing you as this negative version from 5 years ago. Someone sees you for who you are now, and someone sees you from 2 years ago as differently as someone who was the best friend they could have ever made, or the best lesson they ever learned was from you. And it just really puts into the perspective of, you guys see people for who they are, not what they could be or not who they were. In the current moment, you guys see them for what they are worth, what they are truly showing you, not what they tell you they could be or what they used to be, for who they are now. And on that topic, coming to the final thoughts and the closing of the podcast episode, what are your thoughts of everything you've spoken about that ties into people that are struggling with this, struggling to navigate life, a bit lost, listening to opinions, struggling with failure, struggling with change, you know, not putting effort in, having this complacency, because I'm just really interested in those, and then something you'd like to leave the people with to think about and hopefully inspire someone to do something more with their life.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for sure is being self-conscious of who you are now, not who you want to be in the future. I think it's a really, really big thing, because if you keep pushing yourself to try and become someone that you want to become in 10 years' time, you're going to lose who you are now. And, you know, again, just literally not giving a shit about other people's opinions does not matter. Only the opinions that you want to hear. You got to be selective. You have to be selective mentally. It's probably the hardest thing, because mentally it's very hard to channel these thoughts and channel the noise that you're hearing. But you got to learn how to do that. And just, you know, from me working in these companies, I've worked with over 400 people in the past 2 years in the companies, the clients I've had, everything like that. And you're going to constantly meet people who are going to try and belittle you because they are doing so much better than you. Or you're going to try and meet people who are so much more wealthy than you, who might not look at you in the same light. You're going to have to deal with all these things, and just not giving a shit about anyone else's opinion, just being you, doing everything to the best of your ability is probably the biggest thing I'd say you need to focus on, for sure. And then what was your last point? Was something I'd like me to...
Yeah, just to share with the people that you believe that the world needs, or people in our generation, people in their 20s, even older, that just are struggling a little bit with life in general, navigating their life.
I think talk to someone. That was my biggest problem. You need someone you can talk to. You know, I went through a very bad phase in my life where there was only one person I could really talk to, and that was my mate Blake. And it was just because we were both in the very similar places in our lives. We were both very much away from home, not studying, so someone I could relate to. And that helped a lot when I could talk to him. We're both in 2 different countries. I think if you don't have someone you can talk to and actually vent, it's a very bad thing, because I can only relate to the guy's perspective, but for us, I think a lot of us would bottle a lot of our thoughts in that and just carry on with the life that we're living right now. You need a vent, you need someone to talk to, and you need someone to keep you in check all the time. And over time, I've learned to trust certain people's thoughts on things that I want to hear their thoughts on. Being able to vent those thoughts away helps a lot. So that's probably one of the biggest things I'd say, is find someone you can talk to and go from there. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah. The last thing I just want to say, I think everything we've spoken about and what I love from top to bottom, start to finish, is just be different. You don't have to fit in or to feel some sort of worth, or you don't have to be the same as everyone else, because if you are the same as everyone else, you can get the same results as everyone else. When did it become so bad to be different, to be who you are? That's why we are human. We are all unique in our own ways. We are all our own experiences. Why should we want to copy someone else's?
Yeah.
And Tyrone, just thank you again for being my guest and appearing on the podcast.
No, I appreciate it, man. I'm so happy to be a part of this journey that you're on. You're going places, bro. This is amazing, and hope to be brought back again for another episode.
Of course.
It would be nice.
I appreciate your time and your effort.
No, thanks, bro.